Hey friends, welcome to day 0 of the stitch along. So today I'm just going to go over our supplies and how to prepare your hoop and trace your pattern so that you are ready for tomorrow, which is day 1. So if you purchased a kit, this is pretty much what it's going to look like. If you purchase your own supplies, your things might look just a little bit different. You might not have printed out the stitch guide. You might not have printed, cut your circles of your fabric and rolled it up, but everything should be the same. So what you need to make sure you have is all your colors, including your floss. And I do recommend this single strand D3821, but if you have the 6 strand, or some people I think have a 4 strand, we will talk about that when the time comes. No worries, it will work out just fine. You need a transfer pin of some sort, your hoop. This is helpful to have. You don't have to have it if you only have the PDF, but it's a good thing to be able to refer back to so that you can easily know what you're stitching. You have your digital guide here. I'm not going to show it so people don't, steal things online. And if for some reason you are watching our YouTube video and you have not joined the Facebook group, scan the digital guide. On the second page, there's a link. I want to say it's the first link. Could be the second link. And there's a password on there. Use that password to join the Facebook group. We'd love for you to be a part of the private Facebook group so that you can ask questions, be a part of the giveaways, whatnot. So there's that. You have your felt. You should have 2 needles, a regular embroidery needle and then a tapestry needle, which I'm now second guessing if that's the name of it, but I'm pretty sure that's the name of it. And then you should have your pattern printed out. You for sure need this printed out. And then you have your 2 pieces of fabric. Okay, so let's get started with tracing our pattern. Now, before you trace your pattern, you are going to want to prepare your hoop. If you have the kit, you're just going to want to untie your fabric and roll it out. And if you want, you can iron it. I don't see a huge need. There are some circles like this one that are going to have a crease in it from where they had been on the bolt, but it really is not a big deal. If you want to iron, go for it. Again, not necessary. With the kit, it is a little hard to tell between your Kona fabric, which is going to be the more off-white fabric, and then your just basic cotton that's going to help keep the piece tight. But the easiest way to tell is that the Kona is the bigger circle, and then your smaller circle is the white, thin, inexpensive cotton. So the thin, inexpensive cotton, set that aside for now. You don't need it. You just need your Kona circle. You're going to grab your hoop. You're going to loosen the nut at the top till the pieces come apart. You're going to stick this bottom piece underneath. You want to center it as well as you can. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but as well as you can. Then with your top piece, you're going to put it right back on top. Okay, so tighten it just a little bit. Ooh, sorry, I just realized the camera's wiggling. Tighten it just a little bit, not too much, and then you're going to start pulling gently all the way around the edges evenly. I like to hold it kind of against my belly, hold it against my leg, so I have something to stabilize this while I'm pulling, but for your purposes, I'm going to try and do it holding it in the air. So you're just gently pulling all the way around, and the reason you want to pull kind of both sides at the same time is so that you're not tugging too far to the left, too far to the right. After you've tightened a little bit one time, go to the top of your nut, tighten that a little bit, and then tighten again. You want your fabric to be as tight as possible. Okay, so my nut up there is pretty tight. I can tell my fabric's not moving anymore. And the Kona fabric is kind of nice. I don't know what that is. The Kona fabric's kind of nice that you probably can't see in the video. There's a little bit of a grain, so you can kind of see if your fabric is being tugged too much in one direction, and if it is, you might want to restart. All right, so that part is ready. You now need your pattern. If you got the kit, it kind of looks like this, and you might want to cut it a little bit more to cut this bottom little information off. I'm going to cut mine kind of as close to the pattern as I can, just because it will fit onto the hoop a little bit better as I trace. And I'll explain that more in just a second. Okay. Put my scraps aside. Okay, now I'm gonna grab some tape. I'm gonna turn. If this is your first stitch along, there's gonna be many errors in my speaking. I'm just warning you. You're gonna turn your pattern over and you're gonna tape it down. I like to do this because it means that I will not lose where my pattern is. And so if I like pick up my hoop, if I, you know, stop for any reason, I'm not going to accidentally mistrace in the wrong place. I normally only do probably about 2 pieces on the top and bottom, but we're going to be extra secure today. Okay, now when you turn it over, you'll be able to see your pattern just a little bit. Now, people always ask me, but isn't it going to be backwards? No. After you trace it like this, you're then going to take it out. We'll fix it to be the right way. Don't worry, it's not going to be backwards. That seems to be a concern for many people. I like to do it this way because, one, if I was to put my pattern on this side and turn it over, you can't get the fabric as flat against the fabric, and it's going to make tracing really difficult. So if you have a window you have to trace against and you had to put it this way, you'd be hitting on the fabric and that wouldn't be very helpful. So that's why this is my preference. Now, by taping it like this does make it really easy to put straight up against a window and trace if you don't have a light board, which is what I'm going to show you. Another option is, honestly, like this, I don't know how well you can see on the camera, but I could probably trace it just by putting it flat on my table. It would be perfectly fine. Or it'd probably even be better on a white surface. You'd probably see it a little bit better. But that's an option for you. Another option is you can turn your iPad, your computer into some sort of like light table. I don't know exactly how, you'd have to Google it, but I think you can lock your iPad screen in some way that even if you're pushing on it, it's not going to like change what you're viewing on the screen. I personally wouldn't advise that, just because I don't like the idea of pushing a pin, even if it's through fabric, pushing a pin onto my iPad screen, but maybe I'm just a little too protective of my things. But my thought is, oh, I would break my iPad. One other thing, I'll probably put a note in this video since I forgot to say it, but whenever you are tightening your fabric around your hoop, you do want to make sure when you hit it, it sounds like a drum. That sounds a little not quite right because of the piece of paper that's on it, but it will sound like a drum. It's going to sound nice and tight. That's when you know you have your fabric tight enough. Sorry, I had to jump backwards for 1 second. I don't know if y'all watch these videos and literally do as I'm doing, as I'm showing you, or if you watch the whole video and then go back. So, you know, just making notes. Okay, so we're ready to trace either against a window, light table, iPad. I mean, you could, I think someone told me that they once got a clear box, put a lamp underneath it, put the box on top, and then use that as their light table. There's a million different options. Okay, now let me find my transfer pin. The friction pin opens this way, just so you know. A lot of people have confusion about that, just because they think that you should hit this little top button, but it's really the side. So as we trace, we're going to trace very slowly. There's no rush to this. It is tedious. You're kind of leaning over, you're hunching depending on how you're tracing, but because it's taped on here, it's not going to move. Take a break if you need to. I'm even probably going to show you a little bit of this and then probably even speed up the video so that you don't have to sit and watch me do all of it, because it will take me a minute. And one more note about tracing, you don't have to put little dots for the stars if you don't want to. Completely optional. I like where my stars are located, so I'm going to keep them there. But if you're like, oh, I want more stars, or I want this or that, you don't really have to trace the stars at this moment. Okay. One more thing. When you're doing the text, it is helpful to have a piece of paper underneath you to keep a straight line. You want to try and keep your text as straight as possible, and it can be a little difficult to do that freehand. Even if you're tracing, it's easy to go lower than you need to, higher than you need to, and this is just helpful to have. So I'm going to turn my light table on. Maybe. I just bought a replacement, but It has not come in yet. My table has not been very kind to me. Okay, there's no specific order as far as how to trace this. I'm going to start with my stars because sometimes I just want to start with what's easiest. So I'm just doing little dots. They don't have to be super thick. This pin, I almost said pencil, will go away at the very end with heat. But if I was to just draw lines straight across and don't stitch over it, you would see a little bit of a ghost line after the heat has made the pin go away. So you don't want your pin marks to be overly big where they're not going to be covered by the stitches. Okay, now I'm going to do my clouds. Okay, I'm going to get in close, so you might see my head. I'm sorry if you do. Okay, so next I'm going to trace my text and this star right here. I'm going to, even for the star, use a little piece of paper so I have these lines nice and straight. And for the text, especially, take your time. You need to take your time for all of it, but if the text is crooked, it's going to drive you crazy. It's one of the hardest things. Oh, look, I missed a star. Which, while I'm talking about it, while tracing, if you're using a light table or if you're using a window, take a minute to like kind of step away and see if maybe you have missed anything. Because you'll see, oh, I haven't done the text yet. It should jump out pretty easy. The stars might be a little hard to miss or see if you've missed them, but okay. So text, take your time. Write as if you're writing something normally, like go in order of left to right, up, down, and just take your time. That's all I can keep saying is take your time. And business cards work really well for this as well. Business cards tend to fit a little bit better, but this is the piece of paper I have with me now, so that's what I'm gonna use, except I don't think it's getting me all the way to the top. I have to bend my corners. There we go. And it also can sometimes help to have an additional copy of the pattern next to you, so you can say, oh, it really does curve that way, it does do this, because this text is a little it's not super straight. There's like a slight angle to some of the letters. I don't use this part for cursive because it goes a little more underlines, like under the baseline, if that makes sense. So turn your light off, walk away from the window, look and see if everything looks as if it is there. Check for the dot in your eye and child. Yeah, so it looks like I've gotten everything. So I'm going to turn it over. Put my things away. Take my pattern off. Come on. That was too secure in my tape. Okay. Put that aside. Save it if you want, if you plan on making 20 more. Best of luck to you. Now we're going to loosen our nut. Take it out. Put it aside. Now we're going to grab our inexpensive cotton and put that straight down. Again, you want it to be relatively centered. And people often ask me, why are we putting a second layer down? There's two reasons. One is, as much as I love the Kona cotton, it is not super thick. And so this helps add a thickness inside the hoop so that you're not going to have your fabric get too loose or move it around on you. And then it also helps add a little bit extra backing on the backside so that you won't see stitches through the back. Now, if you hold it up to, once you stitch everything and you hold it up to a light or window or something, yes, you're still going to see the stitches from behind, but it helps a little bit. I mostly like it for the thickness. Okay, now you want to try and get it centered right back where it was, and your lines kind of help you a little bit of where your hoop was before. And it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, because once you're done stitching, you're going to take it out again. And because you have two pieces of fabric, if for some reason this top hoop doesn't go back over it, just loosen it up a little bit more. It might be too thick, it can't get over it. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So I'm going to tighten a little bit at the top. Now, just like before, I'm going to pull both pieces. And you do want to make sure that you're pulling this second piece as well, because you don't want the second layer to be loose and the top layer to be tight. Okay, I'm gonna bring it a little closer to me. Sorry, I've got to, here. Oh, I can scoot it closer. I don't know why I didn't think of that. My little pregnancy belly might be in the way, but okay. So I'm kind of leaning the top forward on the table so I can. And be careful when you're doing this that your text is not getting wonky. If you notice you pull too far one way, you're going to see the word for is like pulled this way. Just take it out, redo it. You're going to stitch it the way you see it. So if you see it crooked, it's going to be crooked. Now, there is some room for minor adjustment. Of course, like if you pulled, sorry, there's gnats in my house and I can't get rid of them. If you pulled just a little bit too far and you can tell it looks off-centered when you're stitching, you can maybe not make that one last little stitch that your pin is telling you to make. So there's a little room for leniency, but if you've pulled the word for up here, you obviously don't want to stitch it like that. So I've tightened it a little bit again at the top, pulling it around. And you do want to make sure that even if it's not exactly where you want it to be in your hoop, this bottom portion isn't going to hit this back piece of your hoop, so that when you stitch, you're not going to run into the hoop, the wooden part. Okay, tighten one last time. And again, this is where you want it to be as tight as a drum. So you hit it. If it sounds like a drum, you are good to go. All right, so you have your pattern trace. You are ready for stitching tomorrow. So come back tomorrow and we will start stitching our clouds.